All right. Welcome to episode something of chapter 5 of our podcast. We are reading or discussing chapter 5 of Mistborn. And previously, we've gone through the last couple chapters and have been going through these walkthroughs. So we're going to keep that going. Today, we have something special for you. At least I do. So in the spirit of the series and the allomancy and metals, I am going to be taking a break every 20 minutes to check on. I've got a cast iron pan in the oven, seasoning that bad boy up. Some might call it a shenanigan. I don't know.
Some cast iron shenanigans.
So I got to check on that every 20 minutes to make sure I'm not burning my house down here. So I'll be stepping away briefly, and Christopher's going to fill in with something. We don't quite know what yet. I think he's cooking up something fun for the
interludes.
Brief interludes. So we're looking forward to that. So, but without further ado, Christopher, any last words before we jump into our snack?
Oh no, just like to thank everybody for coming to Shards and Shenanigans. Take it away.
You really got into the voice. I loved it.
Yeah, I was feeling it. Doing the deep vibe.
Hell yeah. All right, so the snack here before Chapter 5, our meal begins. We're learning more about this Terrace philosophy, and that there's philosophers in Terrace, and we're specifically hearing about something called the deepness, and that it's got to be destroyed. And apparently, whoever this snack is written about is the only one that can destroy it. And so, again, we still don't know for sure who these little tidbits are about, and if they change from character to character, or if it's all the same person. One would make you believe, based on how things are going, that it's Kelsier. But who knows? I guess we'll hopefully find out. Or maybe we'll never find out. That would be sick and twisted. So... So jumping into the main meal here, we are back still in the lair and the underground hideout, and Kelsier and Doxson, and they're going back and forth with Vin about kind of how this meeting went, and Vin's still thinking are these guys serious? Is this a serious plan? How. She's still skeptical. That's kind of been, as we talked last episode, her theme. And then we hear Doxson ask about when Kelsier's other friends are getting here. So we've obviously got additional people that are going to be showing up into the story, and we don't really know who they are, but just that they're going to be coming in a couple days. They're talking about getting a new smoker, because in the last... in the last chapter, Clubs walked out. He was going to be the smoker for the group, and he walked out and said he, didn't want any part of this. And so they're saying, hey, we got to get a smoker before these guys show up, and then Kelsier needs more ATM.
Right, yeah.
Doxson's like, really? It took me 8 months to get you the last batch. And so we figure out that Kelsier used some of it, or I guess most of it, buying something called Or Sears contract.
Or Sears contract, yeah.
Yeah. Or Sears.
Yeah,
okay.
That's how I pronounce it, at least. Yeah, that's a huge... that's a huge catch there. I like that.
So that's new to me. Don't know what that is, but obviously we got a contract. I mean, obviously the word "or" I feel like is something to play into.
Some kind of metal connection there.
Yeah. And then obviously he used some of it at Trestine's plantation when he was up there murking all the guards. Yeah,
exactly.
So they're pouring some wine. Vin's not drinking anything, and she's like, "Yeah, I don't drink anything that I didn't prepare myself." And Kelsier says, "Oh, she reminds me of Vint," which is a new name for us, and apparently Vint is some guy that they know who jumps at his own shadow, basically, and doesn't really trust anybody. I did like how Sanderson talked about Vin putting herself in the room where she can see both entrances. Mm-hmm. I think that's, in someone in her position, I think that just totally makes sense that she's always, she's got her shields up and she's very alert and aware of her surroundings.
Looking for her exits, yeah.
Her exits, and she's just trying to survive, right? Like, that's her whole thing. And so, next thing we know, we hear someone coming down the stairs, and it's Clubs. He's back, and he's got
a boy with
errand
him.
Boy. Yeah, a young boy. Hopefully not in a weird way. And they... so, they're back in, and Clubs is like, hey, is the soother gone? And Kelsier says, who, Breeze? Yeah, he's gone. So I don't know if we'd have heard the term soother before.
No, we had. I think I slipped last episode. Yeah, I think I slipped.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. They had talked about... I tried not to hammer it home. They had talked about soothing emotions, I think, but it was lowercase. And they hadn't, I don't think, used that term yet for one like Breeze, a misting like Breeze.
Okay. So now we know that what Vin originally was doing before we figured out that she can, manipulate all of the metals. Mm-hmm. She's full Mistborn, was soothing, and then she would have been characterized as soother if those were the only abilities that she had.
Totally.
So that's cool.
Nice.
So basically, Clubs, smart guy here. He's obviously older based on the description we got of him earlier, and so he's been around. He's like, yeah, I just had to come back and be sure that, the soother Breeze wasn't, or really anybody there, wasn't manipulating his feelings into, going along with the mission. And so, just makes sense, and so
I like how he ends that statement too. When he's saying, I can't be trusted, he goes, copper or no copper, which is like kind of a cool like connection to kind of his abilities and like how they work.
Oh, okay. I don't think I caught that.
Yeah, no, it was a cool part.
Yeah. So kind of continuing on, we hear that Clubs is saying, hey, so Kelsier, the pits really did drive you insane, and Kelsier just straight face is like, completely. Yep, so you're 100% correct. So that's kind of interesting, and so once he finds out that Kelsier is serious about the job, he basically is like, yep, I'm in, and he, interestingly enough, is saying he's not doing it for the money, which, as we previously heard in the last chapter, it wasn't even going to be a lot, 30,000 boxings, kind of split amongst however many people, and they've, I'm sure they got to pay off lots. Basically, they were going to break even. So, but he's saying it's not for, it's not for the money. It's basically because he wants to topple the government. And I like how he's like, don't smile at me. I hate that.
Yeah, I love it. I wouldn't dare. It's so great. Yeah.
So that's awesome. So he talks about how, he spent his whole life trying to hide mistings from the Lord Ruler, and that the Lord Ruler always gets them eventually. And then Clubs goes on to say that the reason he's going to help is that he wants to be able to, like, he thinks they're basically all going to, like, die, or at least he's going to die, and that the Lord Ruler is going to get him. And he's saying, I just want to spit in his face as I go.
I love this guy. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's old and bitter and just ready to fuck shit up.
Ready to go.
Quickly after that, that's kind of the end of it there. Inside, and then Kelsier's like, let's go up to the roof. And they're on a mission to fetch some more ATM. So we get a little break, and we like cut scene, and now we're up on the roof, and this is the part I feel like of this chapter that is super in depth, and we're going to be talking about probably for the rest of this podcast. So totally. It's there's a lot of information coming at you. I'm going to do my best to sum it all up. I've got lots of notes and underlines and highlights, so hopefully we can get through it. So they're up on the roof. the Mists are in town too. I don't know if we talked about that, but in Luthadel, the Mists are out at night as well.
Yep. We're kind of seeing it for the first time here. Right. Before we weren't really sure. They didn't really bring it up yet.
And so it sounds like even noblemen and thieves like in Luthadel are still like they're apprehensive about like going out into it. And like the night in the city is just kind of for people who are desperate. And but interestingly enough, that it's a land of mystery, and he says strange creatures here. So we don't know what kind of strange creatures, but Kelsier says strange creatures like me.
Yeah, I love it.
So don't know if that's a kind of a reference to Mistwraiths, which we have heard a little bit about, but we don't know anything about yet. But just kind of keep that locked in.
Right.
So they're up on the roof. Kelsier's kind of looking over the city, and he realizes that this is something that he used to do before a big job with his wife, Mare, and that this is like an old custom that he kind of slips back into, and he didn't even really realize that that's what he was doing. So he turns around, and talks to Doxson and Vin, who are up on the roof. Clubs isn't up there. It's just the three of them. And it says here that, Kelsier's learned more than just to be able to stomach the Mists, but like he clearly is either going to use them or knows how to, either use them to his advantage or something like that. And so he's very comfortable in these circumstances. And so we do, I think, I don't know if we resolved this last episode or in chapter 4, but just to reconfirm, we have him saying here that, like he was one of the most, if not the most famous crew leaders in Luthadel, and he had done that before he was an Allomancer. We learned that Mare, the wife, was a Tenai, but that he and Doxson, neither one of them, were Mistings or a Mistborn, and that they were just kind of ordinary dudes. One was a half-breed with no power, so I'm assuming that means half Ska, half noble, and the other was a runaway plantation Ska. I don't know. We don't really hear one way or the other which one's which.
All right. Yep. That's accurate.
So, I don't know if because Kelsier later, because obviously he is now Mistborn, based on clearly what happened to him in the pits of Hathsin. So I don't know if he would have to be the half-breed for that to even be possible.
It's a good assumption, I think.
Right. So we'll see. But basically, when the three of them worked together, they were very good at what they were doing and were very good at stealing from all the great houses, and from all the most powerful people in the Empire. He had always dreamed of allomancy and wanted that power, and now that he's had it, like his wife wasn't able to see him with it. She had died before he snapped, as you will here in the book.
Yeah, that's right.
We learned that probably in getting sent to the pits, it says that a trap was in place by the Lord Ruler specifically to capture Kelsier. And so that's interesting that, this had gotten big enough and that they had become kind of such a big name to kind of draw the attention and the ire of the Lord Ruler himself. So I thought that was kind of important to mention.
Mm-hmm.
So Kelsier's back on the roof, and he is saying like, hey, which house should we steal from? I need ATM. And Doxson says, well, House Urbane and Teniert were both hit recently, but though not for their ATM. And then Kelsier's like, yeah, but who's the strongest? I want to go after the top dog. And so Doxson's like, oh yeah, it's going to be Venture.
Yeah.
They've been on top.
You've heard before.
Yes, we have heard before. They've got lots of like hundreds of soldiers or like, kind of warriors that work for them. They've got Mistines that work for them, all kinds of people. And so Kelsier's like, all right, that's where we're going. And he whips out this dark gray cloak. And so he's got this cloak. It's this like single piece of cloth, or I'm sorry, not a single piece of cloth, but it's like all these strips of cloth sewn together.
Yeah.
I think of it as like tassels almost, does everybody hear it? Do you hear the alarm?
Cast iron shenanigans.
All right. Christopher, it's all you.
You're stuck with me, your host, Christopher, for Cast Iron Shenanigans. I would like to take a call for one of our callers out here tonight. I've got a special person calling in from, what's this? Oh, South Sarsaparilla? Oh, goodness me. I guess we'll have to take this call. Oh, hey, South Sarsaparilla listener number 1. Oh, that'll be good to use a sound effect over. All right.
Okay, all right.
I'll get to practice my editing skills.
Okay, perfect. Don't know what we talked about. Maybe, hopefully, some of it'll stay in because that was fun. My house is not burning down.
Nice. Love to hear it.
But I definitely am excited to have some iron.
Oh, iron by your side for this
next in the
part.
oven for this podcast. Yeah, and for this part of this chapter. So, so he's whipping out this cloak. We learn that
this cloak.
Yep. The
Mistborn cloak.
This gray cloak is a Mistborn cloak, and that basically Mistborn in the city wear it to differentiate themselves from others. And so, like, if you are a guard or you are basically anybody else that's not this elite status, no one's going to mess with you. It is like the symbol of peak. Like, you are on top of the food chain and no one's going to mess with you. So he whips out one of these, which is fitting because he is Mistborn.
Yeah.
And so Vin's like, what is this? And he says it's colored and constructed in a manner to hide you in the mist. And so are Mistborn? Are they just the mist wraiths? I don't know. I don't know. So it's interesting here because we learn some more details about Lord Venture and his their house, or the, I guess what would you call it? Because I feel like
keep?
It's more than just a house. It's almost like
it's like a keep. Like, it's like fortified. Yeah. It's got it's got like stones and spires and glass. It's like maybe not a massive castle, but it's like a keep, like a garrison. That is a big complex of a building almost.
Yeah,
that's how I've always envisioned it. And I like this. I love perfect. This. The description we get here in a little bit as we move a little bit further, we get more description of it.
So Doxson talks about how, hey, specifically on the 3rd floor in the study, you're going to find a safe. And I just really liked how clearly Doxson has either already scouted this himself or has paid someone to, like, is this dude just running around with knowledge on where every nobility in the city keeps their ATM and stuff. Like, I just wonder how massive this guy's network in the underworld is to just know this kind of information off the top of his head.
The eyes and ears, It's just like, I love Doxson. It's great. Proving his worth.
He's it's a lot of good info, and he talks about how there's haze killers.
That's a new term.
New term. Don't know what that is yet. We're gonna find out here in this chapter. Kelsier is like, he's basically getting ready to go, and he pulls out a pair of glass daggers from his bag. He checks them for nicks and slides them into his sheaths. And so I came back after reading a little forward and put a note here. And so I'll just go ahead and read my note because I think it's good since we're here. But basically, I just wrote no push or pull. And so as we're going to find out with some of these metals and, how you can interact with them, the fact that these are made out of glass instead of metal is going to be very, very important.
Yeah, glass, that's right.
And so I like here how he kicks off his shoes and his socks. So he's barefoot. and he's basically does this to get rid of all the metal on his body except for his coin pouch, and then the vials of metals that he keeps. He's got these vials
on his belt, like little metal potion charges.
Yeah,
I love it.
I think of them as like little like shotgun shells that you keep on your belt, or like old Western 45.
I see it like a mana potion. Because, like, the metals, like, I see, like, this, fantasy, almost, like, we're punishing my mana with this metal potion,
Yeah.
So good.
So he's decked out, ready to go. He selects the largest vial, downs the contents, and that's kind of it. And so, he basically pulls out a coin, tosses it off the side of the building, and is like, peace, I'm out. I'll see you guys back at club shop. And so Kelsier turns, walks up to the roof, and just jumps off.
Yeah.
And so this is where it really gets fun, and we learn a lot of what can be done with some of this allomancy and with some of these powers. So very, very cool, very exciting. So as he jumps off, he burns steel, the second of the basic allomantic metals.
Nice.
And translucent blue lines spring into his existence all around him.
Yeah.
He's the only one that can see him. Nobody else can. And each line we learn is going from the center of his chest out to some kind of source of metal. So it's like this
so cool.
Super vision where he can now see where the metal that he wants to interact with is around him.
Yeah.
And so that, most of the lines are faint. They're going to nails, to door hinges, handles, things like that. But there's one pretty solid line going pretty much straight down to like beneath him to where the coin was. And so we learned that burning iron or steel would point blue lines at all kinds of metals. Mm-hmm. And they have to be close enough, of course.
Within a certain range, yep.
Within a certain range. And so we get a term here. So as he burns the steel, he pushed, capitalized, against the coin that's below him.
Yep.
And so basically he's using his abilities here to use some force directed against that metal. So his descent stops. He's not falling anymore. And he actually gets flown back up into the air in the opposite direction, kind of straight along the blue line that's shining into his chest, like from the coin, kind of along that same path.
Straight up.
So he then reaches out to the side, and I just have visions of like Spider-Man here, and finds like something nearby on the side, like a window glass, pushes against it and angles himself up, and that kind of sends him over the lip of the building onto like across the street from the lair. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of using these metals around him to push off of. Almost like a magnet. It would be like a good, I feel like, comparison of like two magnets kind of that are opposite, or not, I'm sorry, the same. Mm-hmm. What was that, polarity?
Yeah, same polarity.
Okay. And, and kind of bouncing off of them and then kind of pushing around to essentially almost fly.
Right, exactly.
He's burned some tin that enhances the senses. We've known that one before. He did that all the way back at Lord Trusting's on the plantation when the girl was being taken and they heard the screams. So that's our first introduction there.
Goodman.
And so all of his senses, Goodman Tepper. And so we hear that, or we see that he's getting, all of his senses are increasing. He can feel everything around him, his senses very, very increased here. All of his senses. He continues to leave that on, which I think is a cool trick or feature. Like he can just slowly burn this in his body, and it says like it can last quite a while. So his senses can kind of stay peaked as he's going on this mission. Interesting here. Some more about the mists. That, the mist curled around his body, and it says that the mists knew him and they claimed him, and that the mist can sense allomancy. So another good tidbit of what this world is building. So he continued basically to use these coins, throws them out, and pushes against them. And this specific instant, as he's throwing the coin, he pushes on it before it hits the ground. And so when he does, it flings the coin very fast into the ground. And he then, goes kind of like the other way as well.
After so as soon as it hit the ground. You're right. You're on it. Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. No, yeah, exactly right. After it hits the ground, that's when the force transfers to him, and he's able to then kind of launch himself again. And so he is using steel pushing and iron pulling.
Yeah.
And we learned these terms and that they were the first things that Gimel, which is a new name for us, had taught him. And so we get kind of a little brief tidbit about what pushing and pulling's like, and that you don't want to pull on anything that weighs less than you, because it'll fly at you, and you don't want to push on something that's heavier than you unless you want to get tossed yourself.
Yeah. And something I missed here the first time, but as I later recall it and reading it again for the first time, he says the old lunatic had said. And he calls Gemmel an old lunatic, which is great.
Okay.
Yeah, that's something that I admit definitely missed the first time. Missed the mention of Gemmel, actually. And so when I got introduced to Gemmel again at a later point, I was more confused than I should have been. But yeah, this is it's just a quick mention here. And it's awesome. And it's an awesome one, reading it again.
Nice. So, Kelsier here, he says he scratches his scars, and then pulls his cloak tight. And so I just thought that was kind of an interesting additive, and is something with the allomancy and these scars specifically causing him to itch, or is it just some passive description that we're getting here from Sanderson? No idea. Get a little more info about the Keep Venture, the architecture, the stained glass windows, all the stuff that you mentioned, very, very detailed. And he's basically still looking for, now that he's close, looking for a good source of metal. And so he finds something up on the, actually before that, he does see some guards standing up on the roof, and that he is sensing the guards breastplate or their weapons. And we learned that despite the fact that allomancy exists, that most noble people still provide or arm their soldiers with normal things that you would, like shields or armor or weapons that are made out of metal. And that I guess mistings who could push or pull on metals are very uncommon, and full Mistborn are obviously even more uncommon. And if they're already being they're already the nobility, and the nobility in most instances are, I guess they could be fighting against each other too, but just clearly not enough of a concern to strip their guards of these basic tools.
And it kind of distinguishes there's those that push and there's those that pull. And for mistings, they can do one or the other, whereas Mistborn, obviously Kelsier's doing both with ease right now.
He's crushing it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great. It's a great scene.
So he basically continues to burn his iron, pulling himself towards the keep. He's pulling on the roof line, some bronze or copper that's up on the roof, flies through the air, and we're learning that he's kind of arcing, even though that he's pulling on it, it kind of still sends him in this arc. And so he cleared the wall of the keep's grounds, but his body dropped kind of in this arc, and he's getting tugged, tugged downward, just basically gravity, it sounds like. And he's kind of quite a few feet, dozens of feet below where he wants to be, and he's coming in hot. So he's getting ready to splat against the wall if he doesn't do something. So he burns pewter.
Pewter burning. Yeah.
And so that's going to enhance his physical strength, as we're learning. And so that's, I'm assuming, in the group we've got a muscle. Who's the muscle in the group?
I know who it is. I don't know if we've ruined it yet, or I don't want to ruin it.
I don't know if we. I feel like we, at least probably in chapter 3, we talked about.
We know Breeze. We know Breeze is the soother, and we know Dox is not.
Well, Dox is
not a misting, and we know Kelsier obviously is the other people mentioned in the groups, like Clubs is a smoker. We don't.
Maybe Ham.
Yeah. Maybe Ham. I don't know. Maybe Ham. Indeed. I think it's pretty safe to say. I think it may have mentioned that Ham was the muscle. And
we'll see.
I'm definitely not going to say you're wrong. How about that?
Okay. All right. So we're learning that, if you're the muscle, the one that's fucking people up with your strength, you're burning pewter. And so by doing this, he increases his physical strength, just like the way that burning tin kind of enhances his senses. So he basically turns and kind of hits the wall feet first with his super strength, and his muscles are able to absorb that impact. Doesn't really break anything, which is great. And then he releases his hold on the roof, so he stops pulling up there and dropped a coin immediately. I mean, there's a lot going on. Clearly, he's practiced and seasoned. Like,
right.
It would take a lot to coordinate this.
For sure.
And so he pushes against the coin as it falls, and then select a source of metal above him and pulls. And so when the coin hit the ground, he was then able to support his weight with that and launches himself. It flies back up. It's pretty cool how he's using the push-pull to traverse the city across. Like it's quite.
I loved how you said how it's almost like flying, but like it was so well said because it's almost right. He's like falling and like he's adjusting and he's like making it work. Like he's definitely not flying, but he's just using it creatively. And yeah, I totally agree. It's really fun. It's a great scene.
To quote the great movie Toy Story, falling with style.
Falling with style. Absolutely. Yeah, great quote. I love it.
So he when he flies back up, he lands on the walkway up on the upper service walkway of the keep, startles some guards, like a guard right there. So he instantly pulls on the guard's breastplate, the metal breastplate, throws him off balance. And Kelsier uses his glass dagger, and just pulls it out, and so he pulls this guy towards him, and then lands with his feet against the guy's chest as they're flying towards each other, and then uses his enhanced strength to shank this dude.
Slits his throat.
And so slits his throat, he dies, boom, gone. And he was basically like, hey, doesn't matter if you're a lesser noble, if you just work for the nobles or anyone in the empire, if you are any kind of part of it, you're done. I have no qualms about killing you.
Enticed by a few coins.
Yeah. So we learned that one purpose of this evening is obviously we got to get some more ATM. The 10th and most powerful of the generally known metals, elementic metals.
Yep.
But that he's got another purpose, which is to cause a commotion. And so
again,
just like at Trestane's manor,
right? Cause a commotion,
or the plantation.
Right.
He's all about it. He finds the the balcony that Doxon had told him about, the one that he needs to enter to find the ATM, drops between some guards on there, makes quick work of them by pushing them both sideways. This is when he's starting to cause the commotion.
Yeah.
So he pushes out. They both fly over the railing, fall to their demise. They're screaming. And obviously, that's going to cause a stir here in the keep. And so he makes his way through the building, and I think this is a good like as he's moving room to room, he realizes that the next room that he's going into, which is we think is the study here, is like clearly there's some light coming from the door, and so he extinguishes his tin because he doesn't want to be blinded with his enhanced eyesight. Right. Which like I didn't even think of that. Right. Obviously, like I had no idea that you would need to take those kinds of things into consideration, and so I just thought that was kind of cool. So
ducks inside to senses, can be inhibiting as well if you hear too well or things like that. It can like see too well.
Can go both ways.
Yeah.
So he gets in the study. He burns the steel. He's looking for metal. Lines are shooting out. If he finds like a safe in the corner of the room, thinks, hey, that's going to be too obvious. And he finds another like big source of metal inside the wall. He goes over there, and he there's a false section of the wall, and so he says something here which he kind of I feel like has mentioned before, that there's always another secret. I feel like he's kind of quoted like saying something like that before, and so. I think it's fun. He didn't even try to like figure out how to open it. He's just like, yep, let's just tug this shit out of the wall. And so just pulls and pulls and pulls on the metal. And finally, the like outer, I guess, door pulls open. There's a small safe embedded in the wall. And so he jumps up using the iron pulling against the safe, increases his strength using all these different powers we just learned about. And that it finally shifts out of the wall, and it rips free. Kelsier, when he does this, lands maladroitly, which I was like, what the fuck does maladroitly mean? So I had to look that one up, and like, I don't even think I remember what it means from when I looked it up, but like, I felt like it was like gracefully, or like, I don't know. Are you looking it up?
Oh yeah, I am. Awkwardly, clumsily, or in an unskilled
clumsily.
manner.
Okay, sorry. The opposite of what I thought.
Well, because it does say that as he pulls it, it comes right at him. It literally comes right at him, so he has to push himself out of the way. So then he falls maladroitly. It is a good. It's a definitely an obscure word. Not one of my common ones.
Definitely not. That reminded me when we would read Wheel of Time.
Oh yeah.
And you would like, anytime we'd be kind of in between to talk about like, hey, what happened in these next couple chapters or whatever, you would text me and you'd be like, my favorite word in this section is this, and because Robert Jordan or words. Brandon Sanderson both would use crazy stuff.
Yeah, some good words.
So finally some guards burst in. Kelsier's like, it's about time, let's go. And this is where we start to see how allomancy plays into like fighting. Which is very, very cool. Super cool. These guys are armed just like normal guards would. So Kelsier, immediately rips their swords, like out of their hands. And one of the guards shouts, Mistborn. And so Kelsier's all excited. He's smiling. So he jumps forward. Guard pulls out a dagger. Kelsier pushes on it, rips out of his hand, and then he's like swings and sheared the guard's head from his body, probably using one of his daggers. So like pretty savage. Second guard's like, fuck my life. Dude, he's like, this is not going to end well for me. So he releases his breastplate, gets it off so like he can't be pulled or pushed anymore. And Kelsier pushed on his own sword as he completed his swing here and rips it from his fingers, and it basically hissed directly towards that second guard. And just as the armor drops off of him, it pierces him. And so, like, very
these guys just don't stand a chance.
No. Yeah. It's like bringing it. Yeah, it's like a knife at a gunfight. It's just not helping them. Yeah. We kind of hear something interesting here about his scars, and that Kelsier's anger was quiet and not really as fierce as the night that he had killed Trusting, but he could still like feel it, and he felt it in the itching of his scars, and then he remembered screams of the woman he loved.
So angry.
Yeah, he's just got all this resentment and anger, and he's bitter and
vengeance,
ready to tear it down. So he's pulling the safe with him, using his powers to kind of get it with him, and he hears something from behind him, turns around, and there's 8 people, and that they are haze killers, and so they're carrying dueling canes and shields instead of any kind of sword. So he drops the safe to the ground, and we learn here that haze killers, they're not allomancers, but they are trained specifically to fight Mistings and Mistborn. They don't use any metal. There's not a single bit of metal on them, and that they are going to be anticipating anything that he might be able to do. So they instantly jump in and start attacking. Dashing into the room that he's in, and Kelsier pulls out his glass daggers, and he's slicing away, but this guy jumps back, and Kelsier's basically fighting off the strikes that are coming at him. And we see here that he really does struggle a little bit against these guys. They're well trained, and they whack him with their canes. They're using their shields to block, and so this is fun here. He uses his coin pouch, kind of rips out his coins and shoots them forward, almost like these like instead of to bounce off of the ground to fly, he's using them as weapons.
Oh yeah,
flying through the air,
like a shotgun blast.
And it's super, super cool. But they've got their shields, so they're fine. So these haze killers fill up the room, and he's kind of struggling a little bit, and he sees, or we learn here that pewter is the fastest burning of the 8 basic metals, right. And so he's using, he's trying to use it to for the strength, but it's running low, and so the attacks keep coming. He's still stumbling around, fighting them back, and I don't have a lot of notes here because it's just a good fight, and if you're reading along with us, you'll hear more about it. I don't want to take up all the time talking about kind of what's going on here, but he's definitely using anything he can to fight back with these guys. And they're landing licks, they're landing some good shots on him.
Oh yeah.
He's got pain, and because he's burning 10 in his, or is that 10? Yeah, his senses.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's burning the 10, that everything's more acute, and it's hurting him even more. It's a really, really great fight. I really don't have. It's 4 or 5 pages. I didn't really have anything specific here. If there's something in here, before the fight ends, that you want me to talk about.
No, I think
before they leave.
Right. Yeah, no, we can get down to the end. I think it's like you said, it's a great fight. Describing a lot of tactics, and I think it just shows some of the good attention to detail. It's a really fun to read experience.
Yeah. So Kelsier's basically, he handles the haze killers, and we see then that some Mistings. Oh, and here maybe this is where we learn this. They're called thugs. These ones, and they burn pewter like ham. So that's where we knew that. So
there you go. Nailed it.
And so Kelsier's okay, time to get out of here. And so he dashes out, jumps out, then pulls on the safe as he jumps out. So the safe's coming, almost like a tether. He's falling down. The safe's coming. It slams into the ground beneath him. He uses that to bounce off of, to kind of push off of to land. Pries open the mangled front of the safe here, and he's still listening. There's the alarms are going off. People are calling, and he opens it up, sees that there's like, we got a couple 10,000 boxing letters of credit, some gemstones, and then he kind of finds way in the back of the safe a pouch, and it's got ATM in it. Once he opens it and sees the ATM, his scars flared, and memories of his time in the pits return to him. So, not only are just maybe general allomancy tactics causing him, itching and burning or whatever on these scars, but it seems like the ATM specifically is causing some issues for him.
Yeah, or some kind of connection with that, and those emotions.
So he noticed that one of the haze killers, which he earlier threw out of the window, was laying a short distance away. He went over there and received his coin pouch because he used his coin pouch to basically push him out of the room and out of the window and fling him to the ground. So he gets his coin pouch back, and so he takes his pouch, his bag of ATM, the letters of credit. Decided, kept his pewter burning because he needs strength, because he thinks he's pretty tired here. He's going to collapse without it. And he dashes off of the night, heading towards Club's shop.
Club's the shop.
So really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool end to the chapter. And I feel like we learned so much about the, not just the world, but like the science of what these people can do, what the different metals can do, what some of the combat's like here. I mean, it was really a really good look into this world, even further. So very, very cool chapter. A lot of fun to read.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think one of my favorite parts about this chapter is it really shows like where Sanderson is able to shine as a writer, and I like that you would use the word science behind it, because I think he really kind of takes a scientific approach with a lot of the stuff in the way that, especially when it comes to his magic systems and how like we're kind of learning about it. We're almost like learning how Kelsier is doing these moves while we're in the air with him, flipping and flying through the air, being pulled and pushed in all sorts of different directions. And, as a reader, you're able to like make guesses and stuff, but it's just so concrete here, and you really kind of experience it over the shoulder of, an expert, our so-called expert, right? That we're seeing. So, right. It's pretty awesome. And, I also, one of the things I really like, just like fun Sanderson tidbits and more about just like his writing process and how he approaches these kind of subjects is really cool, is that he likes to talk to subject matter experts when it comes to a lot of things. And definitely when it comes to physics, he is very particular and likes to run his ideas by experts just to make sure that, yeah, you can stray away from reality with magic and things like that, but to try and make its own science with it is like pretty exciting, and it's something I enjoy about his writing. And he also talks to like combat experts hand in hand, and understanding how like one would actually fight with these different types of weapons, like a dueling cane and shield, versus the guards in armor and the glass daggers. So yeah, I really think this is like a great showcase chapter for the action of Sanderson, and one of my favorite parts is just like learning the magic systems of the worlds that you're in. So yeah, really happy we got to read this one together. This is great.
Now, I don't know this. Do you know? So obviously this is, a series that he has. Did he have works before this that he had, like books?
Absolutely.
And so like, was he books. Seasoned before this, or was this his first like?
No, this was one of his. This was one of. Let me see here. Actually, I want to tell you the exact. I know that. Elantris was like his 6th book, and he wrote that before Mistborn. He wrote Mistborn in 2006, Final Empire.
So actually, I mean, based on this, that is kind of one of his first works. I mean, going through his Wikipedia here,
that he has published.
He
didn't get published until Elantris, but he had written 9 books before Elantris.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So yeah, Elantris is 2005, which is a standalone novel. And then really, I mean,
here we go. So this is from Words of Brandon. This is something that he said in an interview. He said Brandon wrote 13 books before selling his first. So he didn't sell a book until he wrote 13. And then he sold Elantris, which was the first one. And the publisher said, we want something else from you. Instead of writing one of the 13 books that he'd written before, he wanted to write something new.
Okay.
That was kind of part of an FAQ about how Mistborn came about.
I wonder if any of those other works, his early stuff, that never got published, or at least didn't get published originally, ever made it out into the world, or if that's just something that he's still set on.
There's some rare collections that you can seek out, and I actually have a copy of Dragonsteel Prime, which is one of his first ones, which is like a prototype of what becomes of the Stormlight Archive. I also, since I'm a super big nerd about this, I also know that he actually did write a version of Mistborn with a different, like it had some differences, but he scrapped the whole project and gave up on it, and had written that before Elantris as well. But he described a little bit of the plot in that, but I don't want to give it away, because I don't want to give any of the rest of it. But it did have to do with the concept of the this hero concept that he is talking about, where we get the hero of ages and like what some of the same ideas that he wrestles with in this book, but he just executes it differently, which is cool.
I gotcha. That is cool. Also, if you want, it might be a good time for me.
Yeah.
And our listeners, like if people are first time to these books and to Brandon Sanderson's, can you talk about like Mistborn and the, like, we're reading this book that's, it's called Mistborn, but it's also called The Final Empire.
Right.
And then, seems like there's like a trilogy here, but then there's more books later.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's a whole nother thing called the Stormlight Archive. So can you just talk about a little bit about that so
Absolutely.
I can know? And yeah.
Yeah, so kind of the framework that you want to use for it is essentially, I like to start big and then we can get small. So the most macro term that we need is the Cosmere. And the Mistborn, Stormlight Archive, I had mentioned Elantris just a little bit ago. Those all fall within the Cosmere. In the Cosmere, you could think of it as like the galaxy. And then there are stories that take place on, and I don't really feel like it's giving anything away, but they take place on things called spheres. And they are like planets. And so Mistborn is a trilogy, and The Final Empire is the first book of that trilogy, for the Era 1 of a planet. And it encompasses a certain time frame. And I say, without giving away too much, it's a medieval magic, swords, armor, your kind of high fantasy setting. And Era 2, which is there's actually 4 books for Era 2, and a couple secret histories and a couple bonus little short stories. For Era 2, it's 4 books written in a Western gunslinger time frame. So there's a time skip, but it's on the same universe. And so there are the history and things that happen in these books are referenced in those books. So there's a big reward, I feel like, from going from Era 1 to Era 2. But with the Cosmere, and we'll say here, this kind of leads into why starting with Mistborn, why starting with the Final Empire. There's a lot of debate on the internet of the right order to read the books in. And so we will be reading in the way that I think is the best. I think there's a lot of merit to other ways, but I thought this would be the best one for us and one I was most excited about. we're going to be reading Mistborn, and then we're going to be moving to another sphere before continuing with Mistborn Era 2. I just think that's more rewarding because there's a couple more breadcrumbs and Easter eggs that are in Era 2 that you won't necessarily get if you jump right there. So that's my hope for Kyle and to guide in this Cosmere journey. Starting here with this.
So just to clarify, so first era Mistborn, we're reading the Final Empire now. We'll follow that up with the Well of Ascension.
Yes.
And then the Hero of Ages.
Yes, Era 1.
Once we're done with the first era, we are then going to jump to another sphere, and that will be.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm down for input. I think I want to start Stormlight Archive, but I also think that there's merit in depending on what you feel like, we could look at Warbreaker or Elantris. And both are really good. Elantris would be kind of nice because we would just touch base on a little bit earlier of Brandon's writing. Another amazing book, and would give us an opportunity to hit a couple short stories that are really fun. And then Warbreaker on its own is also amazing. And I might end up just breaking up the Stormlight Archive with some good interludes outside of it because Stormlight Archive is 5 out of 10 books written right now. So for all of our readers know, as of this recording, it's just finished its first arc, and there's going to be a second arc for that 5 through 10. Oh, sorry, 6 through 10.
Nice.
So yeah, I think it might be nice to split it up.
There's a ton of stuff. Who knows if we'll... I think the goal would be to continue a podcast through all of this, but I mean, between Mistborn, Stormlight Archive, these secret projects, short works like Elantris, and then even, if we wanted to get into it, graphic novels
the graphic
that are all taking really place in the Cosmere. So quite a bit of stuff to read through and listen through, and definitely going to keep us occupied and on the air for quite a while.
For a long time, yeah. Just for our listeners here, for our moms. Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, moms. Huge shout out to our moms.
And to our families that are interested. I know some family members out there.
We got some family members.
Big thumbs up.
One or two friends.
We got a couple friends.
Some friends, not a lot. I mean,
we got each other.
But we do have each other.
We're a couple Misty Crispy boys.
Yep. And so I don't know if did we even talk about that? How our original name for this podcast? Because you've said it like 5 times and no one knows what you're talking about.
It's great. Yeah, now's the time. Episode 5. Only the real OGs will get to know.
We've already had a lot of shenanigans this episode. I mean, cast iron skillets. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to break the internet. But
yes.
we'll drop this tidbit too. That our original name for our podcast was Misty Boys, obviously a playoff of the Mistborn series, and I kind of had the idea or like image in my head with that of like kind of ripping off of the Beastie Boys, and like I just like I could hear their music with Misty Boys, and like it would have been really cool. But
Crispy Brews and Misty Boys,
the
Crispy Brews,
yeah.
Oh, so good.
And the Crispy Brews, obviously we're two guys who like brews, all kinds of stuff. And so Christopher, right now, I don't know if he's drinking anything tonight, but
had a couple of Crispy Boys.
Do you have a Crispy Brew?
Yeah, had a Crispy Brew tonight. The Deschutes River Brewing Company Hell's Lager. If you could buy it at your local Kirkland. It's delish.
Oh, nice.
And affordable.
And affordable. That's great. Mine, I'm sipping on a Momentum Brewing. It's their dry run series, non-alcoholic. They're Kolsch style. So trying that out. Very, very good. very good beer. Really liking that.
Oh yeah, beer sponsors. Think about us.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, if you are a beer sponsor, Anheuser-Busch, Coors, Milson Coors,
sure.
Or if I think just like we're a grassroots movement, a grassroots podcast. If you're a grassroots brewer, I mean, we might even give you some airtime to start out for free before we even start charging you for some swag or something, or just beers to drink.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to send us some beers to drink, that would be would be nice. So, well. Before we wrap this up, anything else that I missed in Chapter 5 that you want to discuss? Things that you want to go over? That way I'm ready for Chapter 6. What am I missing here?
No, I don't think you missed much at all, my man. Not much. I think, the things that I brought up were more just things that I had missed before. Calling Gemmel the old lunatic was great. That was kind of like a fun reference to Gemmel, and we get there's the boy that's going around with clubs, and for you it's just like a boy, right? It's nondescript, and I like that it's that way, but I know who that is, and so that's like exciting for me, and knowing there's like a little reference of it from Dachshund before as well, and I kind of missed those on my first read through, and it just kind of made me excited to see who that little boy is and get to know more about clubs and Ham and Breeze. Looking forward to reuniting with them in the coming chapters, and Dachshund with our little stash of Atium, that we just liberated from Keep Venture, this nasty nobleman.
Nice.
Yeah. Nice. Excited. Good times.
Well, I think that's it for me. Yeah, I mean, super exciting chapter. I really, like I said, loved some of the fighting and some of the magic that we are discovering, and some of the abilities that Kelsier has, and kind of by some of the other members of the group are going to have, depending on which kind of misting they are. So whether you're a thug or a smoker or whatever, like just cool different stuff that we're learning about. So
so cool.
Yeah. So thanks for listening. Thanks for another great episode, Christopher. You're the man. Thanks for guiding me. And so we have read through now Chapter 5 of The Final Empire, Mistborn, and we will be on our way to Chapter 6. So stay tuned for that, and we will catch you on the next one.
That's right. Thank you for Shards and Shenanigans. Looking forward to seeing us in Episode 7 about Chapter 6, about two guys that are pretty cool and have read 1+4 chapters. So anyhow, take care and have a good night.
And if Lodge Cookware, if you're listening to this episode and you want to sponsor us with some cast iron, I would love to expand my my collection here. So
definitely,
seeking sponsors of all kinds, really.
Right. Consider like a nice Elementic Metals cast iron. That would be pretty sweet.
Yeah, that would be sick. That would be sick.
I'd buy it.
All right. Yeah. All right, friends. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
All right, good night. All right. Slappity slap.
Nice. All right. So this we are going to call, we've talked about the kind of the snack, as you will. Some might even call it an appetizer before the chapter, those little tidbits. Then the chapter, we kind of call those the main meal, your entree, your main course. We're going to call this little segment the dessert. And what's the dessert, Christopher?
Oh, well, I was thinking as we were wrapping up that we could have this little apple cherry pie. That's right. Just imagine that. Apple cherries.
What the fuck?
I was thinking we could snack on this midnight treat. So
basically the dessert to actually explain it to people. It's for all the shit that we forgot to talk about through the actual recording. Yeah. So this, if you're still here listening to this episode after the end credits roll, you get a little bonus.
This is the fudge.
And it's the dessert.
This is the fudge sundae. Yeah, you're right. This is the fudge sundae for sure. When we were talking about the steel pushing and the steel sight that Kelsier gets when he leaps off and you can see all the sources of metal, I just I thought I liked how the steel is related to sight, and we've seen some other mentions of steel already in the book, and some of the agents underneath that mention have like had issues with sight maybe, or like a different way of seeing. And so I really like that part here, and like making that connection was just something I wanted to bring up and see if it gave you kind of like any questions about what that would make you think of, or like what that must be like.
Yeah, I mean, really just based off of what you just said, the only thing I can think about is the Inquisitors and the fact that they've got, nails for eyes. And, what are they seeing? Like, what are they sensing? And I guess if you have nails for eyes and you are pushing or pulling, but the nail's part of your body, like maybe you can then sense the lines that someone shoots out when they're using their steel power, and like those blue lines are shooting, maybe they're going to your eyes because your eyes are now actually metal.
Well, all right. So, yeah, it's good. It's good thinking. I like it. Yeah, no, I like where your head's at, and I just thought it would be some cool food for thought as we're learning more and more about all that's going on here on this sphere here in Mistborn.
I mean, good thing there's no trains in this universe or in this time period right now, because there's I mean, all these spikes, I mean, you need those for the tracks, so we'll see what the next era has, I guess.
Man, I love it. Great thinking. Great thinking. Awesome.
So, well, thanks for sticking around, everybody, for our dessert here. We really appreciate it. Little extra tidbit because we're forgetful.
We're forgetful. Have a nice extra snack, and good night and sweet fudge dreams.
Jesus, good night.